Rizal's annotation of Morga's Sucesos de las Islas, Filipinas. Antonio de Morga Sanchez Garay was a Spanish soldier, lawyer, and a high-ranking colonial official for 43 years. In the Philippines, Spain, and Peru, where he was president of the Real Audiencia for 20 years. He was also a historian. He published the book Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas in 1609, considered one of the most important works on the early history of Spanish colonization of Philippines. The work greatly impressed the Philippine national hero, Jose Rizal, and decided to annotate it and publish a new edition and began working on it in London and completing it in Paris in 1890. The purpose of Rizal's annotation. By publishing his annotated version of the Morga Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas, Rizal's intent was not only to provide the Filipino people their early history as pre-Spanish history, but to present to them their own authentic culture and identity. Let's proceed to the point of view of Morgas and Rizal in geography. Location. For Morga, the Philippines was uninhabitable. It extends up to 12 degrees south latitude. For Rizal, Ptolemy is his geography indicated three islands which are Sindaye, Gilolo, Amboyns, and their inhabitants. Thus, Philippines was not deserted and was actually habitable. It is actually at exactly 25 degrees and 40 minutes latitude north until 12 degrees latitude south. Next is climate. For Morgas, winters and summers are opposite to those in Europe. Rainy weather is from June to September. Summer is from October to May. To Rizal, in Manila by December to February, the temperature goes down more than in thus during August to September. Thus, with regards to the season, it resembles Spain as all the rest of the northern hemisphere. Plant species. Morgas. Betel, pickles, and ginger are abundant. For Rizal, betel is kasubha in Tagalog. Now, let's go for culture and society. Body tattoo, Morga. Draw pattern first before putting black powder where the blood oozes out. To Rizal. Rizal agreed it is the same method as the Japanese. Next is indigenous people. Morga. Tribes of whom cannot be safe because of violence. Rizal. They will always choose violence until the government enters because of their inhumane ways as answer to those who do not submit to the friars. Next is lifestyle and moral principles. Morga. Men and women are money-loving in the capital, so when there is a price, they yield. Rizal. We find it everywhere in the world, even in Europe. Bathing their body on rivers or streams regardless of their age. Next is government. Morga. There are no kings or lords to rule them. Morga was critical of the system of government because there are no rulers of myriad communities instead of one leader for each tribe. For Rizal. Agreed that there were no such kings. Rizal argued that it was better that way because having a leader that knows what the tribe needs and what problems they have is more effective. Let's go for the food. Food. For Morga, they prefer to eat salt fish which begin to decompose and smell. Rizal. It is called bagoong, and all those who have eaten it and tasted it know that it's not or ought to be not rotten. For Morga, the ordinary food of the natives is a very small fish which they called law-law. For Rizal, it seems that Morga refers to tawilis or dilis, which is eaten by natives in large quantities. Next is fate. Beliefs on crocodiles. Morga. The natives set traps on the borders of rivers and streams near their settlements to secure them from which they fear and venerate. Rizal. It is just like how other nations have their respect to lions and bears, putting their symbols on their shields and giving them vulnerable epithets. Next is healers. Morga. Grave sorcerers and wizards who deceive the people and communicate to them whatever they wish. They believe in omens and superstitions. They could tell whether the sick person would live or die. Rizal. Prove though the story of Father Chirino about the case of Armando, who is sick. He often offers his body to see if he will be cured. But if he was cured, what could be said now to all who died despite all the masses of offered to the different virgins? Customs for the dead. Morga. They buried their dead in their own houses, keeping their bodies and bones for a long time in boxes and venerating their skulls. Rizal. We find it much more natural and pious to venerate the remains of our loved ones than those fanatical tears whom we have no dealings and who probably will never remember us. Next is economy. Economy. Morga. Cotton is raised through the island which they sell and trade as threads. They also have cotton and not just rice. Morga. The natives of the island sell the artifacts to the Japanese. Rizal agreed it is very interesting history, shape, and valued, with a price of 100 offered for the one of them. Morga. Natives are always mining for gold, but when the Spaniards came, the mining became lesser and they just treasured what gold jewelry they have and passing it through generations. For Rizal, the Indians on seeing that wealth arose, the capacity of the encomenderos and soldiers abandoned the work in the mines, and the priest historians relate that in order to save them from vexations. The Book of Morgas, Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas, of the historical events of the Philippine Islands, was published in Mexico in 1609 to provide European readers information about the Philippines. The book documented events during Spanish colonial period in the Philippines as observed by the author himself. Moreover, the book also includes Filipino customs, traditions, manners, and religion during the Spanish conquest. Rizal's annotation of Morga's Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas has three main propositions, according to Guerrero, 1998. Number one, to awaken the consciousness of the Filipinos of their glorious past or dignified ways of the past. Second, to correct what has been distorted and falsified about the Philippines prior to Spanish conquest. And third, to prove that the Filipinos are civilized even before the coming of the Spaniards, that the Filipinos are decimated, demoralized, exploited, and ruined by the Spanish colonization. Prior to the annotation of Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas, Rizal painstakingly read historical accounts about the Philippines, such as books written by Antonio Figapeta, Father Chirino, and other Spanish chronicles and historians. He even conducted research at Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris through the help of Dr. Reynold Rost. Rizal spent 4 months for research and writing, and 1 year to have this manuscript printed with Ferdinand Blumentritt wrote the preface of the annotation, emphasizing the following salient points. Number one, that the Spaniards have to correct their erroneous conception of the Filipinos as people of limited intelligence. Number two, that Rizal's comments on Spanish government were unique as it was written in the Filipino point of view, being the victims of colonialism. Number three, that there were three kinds of Spanish delusions about the Philippines. They are Filipinos were an inferior race. Filipinos were not ready for representation and reforms, and denial of equal rights through strict dispensation of justice. Number 4. The Spain should learn Philippine realities from Rizal's new version of Sucesos. And 5. If Spanish authorities would not listen to the Filipinos, the Philippines will be lost through their own fault. The annotation of Rizal consisted of 8 chapters, in which the first 7 chapters delved with the events of the first 11 governors generals of the Philippines, starting from Legazpi to Acuña. The last chapter focused on customs and usages of the Filipinos. His notes were of 3 categories, namely anti-clerical, sociological, and historical. The following are the 3 main propositions of Rizal's new edition of Morga Sucesos. Number 1, that the Filipinos had their own culture and civilization before coming of the Spaniards. Number 2, that the Filipinos are decimated, demoralized, exploited, and ruined by the Spanish colonization. Number 3, that the present state of the Philippines was not necessarily superior to its past. Finally, with the new edition of Morga Sucesos, Rizal was able to produce the first history book of the Philippines written for the Filipinos.